Splatoon 3 is just over 1 month away from being released. And while the game seems good with lots of new maps, specials, weapons, and weapon models, and more, we still honestly haven't seen that much of the game. I mean, Salmon Run, Turf, and single player is really all we've seen so far. And this got me thinking, what things might not come back in Splatoon 3? It's not guaranteed that anything not shown so far will come back, so of the things not shown, what will and won't come back? Well, let's find out. Before we get into the video, make sure to like and subscribe. It really helps me out and tells me you want to see more of this kind of stuff in the future. Thanks, enjoy the video. So far, we've seen 3 modes from Splatoon 2 returning to Splatoon 3. Turf War, Salmon Run, and a single-player campaign. This leaves just 4 main modes from Splatoon 2, the ranked modes. I think that of the 4 ranked modes, just 3 will return in Splatoon 3. Splat Zones, Rainmaker, and Tower Control. That, unfortunately, means Clam Blitz is on the chopping block, and here's why I think it's not coming back. Firstly, the majority of the player base does not like this mode, and honestly, I can understand why. It's a very team-centric mode, and while that makes it great in a competitive setting, it struggles when you're playing it alone without good communication with your teammates. And since we know we're not getting more communication options with your team in 3, the biggest issue with the game still remains. My other main reason is that most of the maps just don't look like they'd be that good for this mode. Clam Blitz benefits from more open maps, allowing for large, coordinated flanks or pushes. Most of the maps shown so far don't, to me at least, look like they'd allow for this sort of gameplay very well. They all look way too small, or way too narrow, and it just doesn't look like it'd work well for this sort of mode at its best. And while there are definitely more maps we haven't seen yet, based on what I've seen so far, I wouldn't bank on Clam Blitz coming back for Splatoon 3. Deciding what stages are and aren't coming back was honestly really easy. If it was in Splatoon 2, it's not coming back for Splatoon 3. Well, in the base game at least. See, one of the biggest hurdles with Splatoon 3 is going to be convincing people that it's a different enough game from Splatoon 2 to be worth buying. And if you have stages from 2 and 3, you're not doing a great job at helping your case. So, it's simple. If it was in Splatoon 2, it won't be back for Splatoon 3. Well, okay, they might not be back in the base game, but we still might see a couple come back in later updates. And while I don't know which ones may come back in those updates, I do have a couple that I almost guarantee will not come back. First and foremost, the Reef. The Reef is Splatoon 2's Urchin Underpass. This means it most likely won't come back for any future games, as it's basically Splatoon 2's identity and its own unique map. Additionally, several of the more unpopular maps, such as Shellendorf Institute, Kelp Dome, and Gobi Arena, most likely won't be making returns either. And lastly, due to how similar it is in theming to the already announced Museum de Alfonsino, Inkbot Art Academy most definitely will not be returning in any way. There are definitely many, many more that won't return. I would only guess we get 2 or 3 bought back at the most, assuming we even get any at all. But considering there are several Splatoon 1 stages that are far more likely to be brought back in addition to all of the new stages, I wouldn't bet any Splatoon 2 stages return for a while, if at all. Weapons should be pretty quick to discuss, right? I mean, we already have confirmation that all main weapons are coming back in Splatoon 3. Well, not so fast. See, the real interesting part of weapons, I would argue, isn't really the main weapons. It's the subs, specials, and most importantly, kits. These aspects of a weapon can make or break how good it is, so which ones are coming back and which ones aren't? Well, the most obvious things that aren't returning are the Kenza weapons. In canon, the Kenza weapons were a one-off line of weapons that were only sold for a short period of time. Between that and the more rough nature of Splatoon 3 and the Splatlands, they most definitely will not be returning. Following this train of thought, Fizzy Bomb, a sub added with the Kenza weapons, most likely won't be returning either. This sub was insanely powerful, and in addition to being on next to no weapons, it's most likely not making a return. And while we're on the topic of sub weapons, Point Sensor is 100% not making a return. As we have the Marker, I'm not calling it an angle shooter, fuck you Nintendo, what the hell is that name? Which does its job far better in every way. Beyond that, it's pretty likely that all the other subs from Splatoon 2 will be returning, as they're all pretty well designed and fairly useful. The specials, however, they're not so lucky. I believe that every single special besides Bomb Rush will be left behind in Splatoon 2 for much the same reason as the stages are being left behind. It needs to look different. It's as simple as that. If you bring all the specials back to Splatoon 3, it just won't look different enough to justify being a new game to a lot of people. That covers the majority of the weapon-related things that aren't coming back, but I do have one more thing to touch on. That being weapon reskins. I believe that most, if not all, of the weapon reskins will probably not be coming back. With what we've seen in the alternate trailer, we know that we're using main weapons in the stages and that there really aren't that many custom versions of these weapons. So I find it fairly likely that while we may get the hero shot back, the rest of the hero weapons and the octo shot are most likely gone for good, or at least until updates or DLC later down the line. Salmon Run is a very interesting case. We already know that all of the bosses from 2 are returning, and that it functions pretty much identically to how it worked in the last game. However, Salmon Run does have something the main game does not: unique maps and weapons. And while I believe some of these will return, not all of them will. Let's start out with the maps. I believe that around half the maps will be cut and replaced with new ones. Of the 5 maps in the game right now, I believe that Spawning Grounds, Lost Outpost, and Ruins of Arch Polaris will be cut, and we will likely get 3 or 4 new maps to fill in their place. Additionally, I'd be willing to bet that none of the Grizzco weapons will be returning in Splatoon 3. Why, you might ask? Well, simple. Because we're going to get 4 new ones. And while I won't touch on which weapons are going to get the Grizzco treatment in this video, keep your eye out for the future though, I think that having 4 new ones will really help distinguish the mode from how it was in Splatoon 2. So that's all the major content I believe will be cut or replaced in Splatoon 3. There are definitely things I didn't think about will be cut, and I'm definitely wrong on some of these, but I do genuinely believe that most of these will not be returning in the 3rd game. Whether to allow for more variety between 2 or 3, or because of a lack of enjoyment for the features. What do you think will and won't be making a return in Splatoon 3? Let me know down in the comments below, and make sure to like and subscribe while you're there. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.